Good evening, everyone. We are beginning, and once again, we find ourselves surrounded by rising COVID rates, and it's distressing. We had become a little accustomed to having people coming back into the show for in-person gathering, but as always, we are abundantly cautious about the health and safety of everyone. And so we are back on YouTube, and we are delighted that Yehuda is joining us for Guitar Shabbat. He is joining us via virtual connections from his own home. And that raises a beautiful point that each and every one of us can join in from an individual home, an apartment, wherever you might be. And it's that fusion of individual connections which establishes a synagogue. And so we shall begin right now with the singing of Shalom Aleichem. And it's your singing and you're singing along and joining in with Yehuda that welcomes angels to our network that is becoming ever more broad. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech, malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu ni leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Zeidchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Yehuda continues with L'chunu Ranana, which means, come on, let's all sing together. And remember, we just welcomed angels. Angels are here. And now all of us, uplifted by the presence of angels, which we welcomed, are rejoicing and we're singing together, L'chunu Ranana. This is Yehuda's own composition.
L'chunu Ranina, L'chunu Ranina, la 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 la, L'chunu Ranina. Naria, Haletzur Yishenu. Nekad mafonav betoda. Naria, Haletzur Yishenu. Bizmirot Narialo. L'chunu Ranina. L'chunu Ranina, la 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 la, L'chunu Ranina. Naria, Haletzur Yishenu. Nekad mafonav betoda. Naria, Haletzur Yishenu. Bizmirot Narialo. L'chunu Ranina, Lechunerani na la 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 la. Lechunerani na. Lechunerani na. Lechunerani na la 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 la. Lechunerani na. Lechunerani na. Lechunerani na.
Shkoyach Yehuda, and another one of Yehuda's compositions. I'm very proud of Yehuda because he's bringing so much beauty into our community with his voice and his song and his creativity. This is Shir Ladonai, which is a psalm. It's, sing a new song to God. The traditional melody, the traditional wordings here, but Yehuda has modified it between his own new melody and also just a little twist on the translation, Shir Ladonai.
Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shema. Bazaru miyom, yom Yeshua tov. Sing to God a new song. Sing to God all the lands. Sing to God and praise His name and tell of His saving hand. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shema. Bazaru miyom, yom Yeshua tov. Sing to God a new song. Sing to God all the lands. Sing to God and praise His name and tell of His saving hand. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz.
And in a moment, we'll continue with the Yismichu Hashemayim, but first, just a little question. If I were to ask you to summarize a major element of being Jewish in 3 or 4 or 5 words or a phrase, what would you say? Can you send that back as a chat to our YouTube channel, to Gadiel? If you were to summarize, or if you were to prioritize one major message of Jewish life, what would it be? In a phrase of 3, 4, 5, 6 words, what would your priority of all of Judaism be, or your encapsulation of all of Judaism? And now, Yismichu Hashemayim v'tagal haaretz, the world itself is happy about being a partner with you and me and God.
Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, ישמחו השמיים ותגל לארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל לארץ. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam, umelo. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam, umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim ותגל לארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל לארץ. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלואו. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלואו. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל לארץ.
And now, Romamu Adonai Eloheinu, lift up your voices and exalt God, which means that from the point of view of the book of Psalms, Romamu comes from Psalms, we have the influence necessary to alter God for the better. We can extol and praise God and have some kind of a lasting influence on God through song as a community. Romamu.
רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו.
There's a progression. We first welcomed angels. And so far, we've been welcoming Shabbat. And now we're going to continue welcoming Shabbat. And then we're directing our energies towards seeing God as being here within our minds, within our experience, our shared experience. And so we're turning to L'Chadodi. And if you have the Siddur, it's page 23, the first two stanzas, page 25, the last stanza. If by chance you're joining in, you have Sim Shalom, it's pages 262 and 264, the first two stanzas, the last stanza. That's the housekeeping. One more thought. If you're just joining us, if you could encapsulate all of Judaism into 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 words, one idea, a message, a principle, a value, what would it be? And put it in the chat and send it to Gadiel. One main idea or priority of Judaism, l'chadodi.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikavela. Shamor b'zachor v'dibur echad, Ishmi'anu elam yuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shimul tiferet b'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, Ki mekor habaracha, Rosh mikadem nesucha, Sakmaseh b'shabtatila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Boi v'shalom atzeret bala, Gam besimcha u'botzehola, Toch emunei am zegula, Boi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela.
Remaining standing for a moment. And if you have a Siddur, we're on page 26. And something just a little bit out of character, but all of our lives right now are out of character. This page here on page 26 bears a very specific greeting, and customarily, traditionally, if there's a Jewish family which has recently buried a loved one and is now coming into synagogue for the first time since the funeral, there's a tradition that goes back many, many centuries to greet the person or the family in a very special way, not with "I'm sorry," but "Hamakom Yinachem Etchem." May the Holy One, which fills the entire universe and beyond, come to you and comfort you. And it's placed here almost as a signal. And without completing this signal of being attentive to somebody or someone's who've just left the cemetery, we can't go forward into the service. You and I are now seeing dramatic increases in COVID. And for those who are mourning and grieving and unable to go into a community, into a gathering place, whether it's a shul or a church or any gathering place, there's an additional burden, not only of grief and of loss, but that they are perhaps feeling alone. And so I'm stopping right now, and even though we as a synagogue have not specifically had our own individual member, let's say, loss recently, we open our hearts to people who have suffered loss. And from a private innermost place, I share my prayer. May the Holy One, which fills the entire universe, be expressed to you, whomever you may be, wherever you may be. And may you know that comfort comes forth, filling the entire universe, and from the origin, the creator of the universe, directly to you. And we as Jews need to carry that message in any way, whether virtually or in person or on the telephone or some other means. We have a mission to make the world better. And remaining standing on page 28, the conclusion of the Psalm for Shabbat prior to the Baruch Hu, remaining standing, we say, the righteous flourish like the date palm, the righteous thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai, the righteous flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age, they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming, Adonai is upright. God is my rock in whom there is no flaw. Remaining standing, the Baruch Hu, the official welcome to Shabbat itself. If you have the Siddur, it's on page 39a. If not, most of us remember the Baruch Hu standing. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach Le'olam Voed. And as we're seated, we turn to the bracha on the English side. Prior to Ahavat Olam, the English bracha on page 39a. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky. God who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu olam voed. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And built into the prayer service, the first bracha being creator of light and dark, day and night, rolling back and forth, interchanging. Immediately thereafter, this bracha, and Yudah will sing it in just a moment in a more modern, contemporary manner, is the expression that God's love fills the universe. So twilight, creation, day and night, transition from day to night through light and dark is the undergirding of love, which is as much a part of the universe as space and time, energy and matter. Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you, all the world sings to you, the world sings to you. The song of the trees when wind stirs their leaves, the song of the earth when rain soothes its thirst, the song of the sea when waves are set free, the song of the sky when hummingbirds fly. Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you, all the world sings to you, the world sings to you. The song of the trees when wind stirs their leaves, the song of the earth when rain soothes its thirst, the song of the sea when waves are set free, the song of the sky when hummingbirds fly. Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you, all the world sings to you, the world sings to you.
And Yehuda is now going to lead us in the Shema and the B'ahavta. If you have the Siddur, page 41, but otherwise just sing along with Yehuda.
God is a faithful king. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha V'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, uv'chol meodecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alavavecha, vishinantam levanecha vidibartam bam, b'shivtecha b'betecha, uvelechtecha vaderech, Uvshach beka, uvkumecha, ukshartam leyot al yadecha, vehayu letotafot beinenecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha, uvisharecha.
Moments of silence. If you're just joining us, one more opportunity. If you have one primary perspective of what Judaism is, the priority of Judaism, a central Jewish value, the encapsulation of Judaism in a phrase of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 words, send it in the chat to Gadiel. A few more moments of silence and then leading into the Michamocha. Adonai Elohechem Emet. And prior to the Michamocha, one short bit of poetry. You, O God, commanded us to cease from our labor that we may find joy and peace in Shabbat. We were not made only to labor. We must reflect and pause that we may sense your presence and go beyond our own selves. Micha Mocha, and again, this is composed by Yehuda.
Micha mocha ba'lim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar b'kodesh, Doratai lo tosef ele, Doratai lo tosef ele, Malchutecha rahu vanecha, Okeyam lifne Moshe, Zeli adnu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'lam vayed Yaida daida yaida daida daida Yaida daida yaida daida daida Yaida daida yaida daida Yaida daida yaida daida Micha mocha ba'lim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar b'kodesh, Noradai lo tosef ele, Noradai lo tosef ele, Noradai lo tosef ele.
V'ne'emar ki fadar Adonai et Yaakov, u'galo mi'achazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. And in a moment, Yehuda will lead us in the Hashkivenu. And we're familiar with the Hashkivenu. The Hebrew word means literally, oh God, help us all to lay down for rest this evening in peace and security and a sense of calm. And more of us realize that that hope to be putting our heads down on a pillow with calm and assurance is seemingly elusive. And there are many people beyond numbers in our local community and on throughout the boundaries of our state and our nation and our world who absolutely have no sense of security or calm or tranquility this evening. And we're all threatened. So first, I say that we all need to pray, because prayer means that you and I are thinking beyond ourselves to others in need. and prioritizing others' needs, sometimes strangers, to our own level of need. And the other is that we have the capacity to make prayer real. And if you've not yet been vaccinated, or if you know somebody's not been vaccinated, turn to that person or turn to yourself and say, I owe it to humanity, as well as one person whom I don't know and people nearby, to be vaccinated so that I can contribute to the betterment of the entire world. Hashkivenu, Yehuda.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Mehamidenu malchei Nu lechayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Hamidenu malchei Nu lechayim Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha Lechayim ushalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Ve'hamidenu malchei Nu lechayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Ve'hamidenu malchei Nu lechayim Ulechayim
Ushmor tzeitenu loenu l'chaim u'shalom etaviad olam ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim v'shamru, the top of page 46.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam B'nei uvei b'nei Yisrael oti leolam Oti leolam Oti leolam Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai Asa Adonai et ha-shemayim ve'et haaretz Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vaynafash Shabbat vaynafash Shabbat vaynafash Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם.
Shkoyach, and before Chatzi Kaddish, one last request, and you'll understand why in just a few minutes. If you're just joining us, what would you prioritize within Judaism as one key component, one main value, or what would you summarize in one principle, 3, 4, 5, 6 words? Put it in chat, send it to Gadiel, Chatzi Kaddish, and then a few moments, an opportunity for silent prayer. Yitgadal, Yitkadash Shemei Rabban. B'alma divrachim mechutei b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'gala b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabban mevarach L'olam l'yolmei olmaya Yitborach, Yitborach, V'yishtabach, V'yitkar, V'yitroman, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitale, V'yitalal, Shemei de'kudesha, Rechu, Leila, Mikor b'chata v'shirata, Tush b'chata, V'nechemata, Ta'amiran nalma, Amen. And now you're invited to rise for the Amidah. If you have the Siddur, pages 47 through 52. And if you don't have the Siddur and you wish to offer a silent prayer, now's the time. And wherever you may be, in your home or somewhere else, as you're standing for a few moments, you are focusing your mind and your heart on direct contact with God, but you're not by yourself. We're right next to you. We can sense one another. A few moments of silent, focused prayer. The concluding bracha of every Amidah throughout our entire calendar year. Last blessing always said, whether in private prayer or group prayer, whether on a Thursday afternoon or on Yom Kippur or every Friday night, every Shabbos morning, the concluding bracha, blessing, the last statement of every Amida is always prayer for peace. Now Yehuda shares with us Shalom Rav. Please sing along.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. Ki atah Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki atah Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. V'tom v'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael v'chol etu v'chol shah v'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amha Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam.
Shkoyach. And now the full Kaddish, and many of us are familiar with the full Kaddish because we have so many Kaddishes. We have a full, we have half, and we have in some congregations, in some contexts, what's called the Rabbanan Kaddish. Of course, we have the Mourner's Kaddish, and the theme of every Kaddish is holiness. But what stands out, at least for the half Kaddish and the full Kaddish, and as a result, a derivative of the full Kaddish is the Mourner's Kaddish, is the principle of names being important. In the narrow context here, it's the name of God. In a few minutes when we conclude the service, it's the name of a loved one being attached to or glued to the name of God. Now full Kaddish. Yitkadal Yitkadash Merabo. Amen. Be'alma Divrach Yotemachot B'Charsim Meru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavorach. Olam Ulyol Me'ol Maya. Yitborach. Yitborach V'Yishtabach V'Yitpar V'Marina Sevid Arvid Alevit Hal Shmei Dekudisha Brifu Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'Shirata Tushbachata V'Nechamata Da'amiram B'Yom Avimeru. Amen. Titkabel Tzloton Voton Dechaisra Kadam Abu Hundi V'Shmai Avimeru. Amen. Yesh Avimeru. Amen. O Seshalom Barmamavi Yaseshalom Malin V'Yimero. Amen. A couple of times so far this evening, I've asked you if you would prioritize or concretize all of Judaism into one phrase or one key concept, what would it be? And some of you have shared messages with us just now in the chat. Rachel said hope and community and tradition, which is a fantastic synopsis of all of Jewish value. And Steve and Gabriel said the same thing. It sounds like when Hillel was asked, how do you summarize all of Judaism in 1 foot? And the phrase that he taught 2,000 years ago in the Talmud was, that which is hateful to you, don't do to others. That which is hateful to you, don't do to others, which means it's refraining from negative behavior. Refraining from negative behavior is different than accomplishing positive behavior. Refraining from negative behavior. That which is hateful to you, don't do to others. All the rest is commentary, go and learn. Which lays a second element that it's not enough just to have one key phrase or principle, but you've got to continue to study. But if I'm looking at this week's Torah reading, where a number of different mitzvot are shared, I come up with a different value. One mitzvah is, if you have a neighbor in the dead of night, don't go over to your boundary marker and move the fence post illegally, illicitly, trying to grab or take hold of some land without that person's knowledge. And in a related little paragraph, there's a mitzvah that if you, O Israel, are successful in the military campaign, you surrounded a city, and the city is struggling, and you are militarily superior, you must offer, it's called a treaty of shalom to the city which is disadvantaged. So let's think about this. Number one, don't surreptitiously move your border marker. Number two, you must offer expressions of shalom when somebody is in an inferior position. Number three, in a just nearby paragraph, there's a statement of when you are operating your judicial system, you must have procedures with at least 2 witnesses or 3 or more, which means not one. Why not one? Because one person who would testify illicitly or negatively against you or me isn't enough of a justification for my life to be assaulted or undone by a system of power. In other words, we need to have a consistent and a balanced and equal system of just operating for everyone, and that's why the principle of 2 witnesses for all major elements of Jewish jurisprudence was established. The idea, hopefully, being that it would be unlikely that 2 people would collude to testify negatively against someone. I would think another thought. In the event that you and I are walking about in our lives, in our business, and we accidentally cause the loss of life of someone, you and I might call it negligent homicide in modern terminology, instead of being executed because it wasn't our intent and it was beyond our immediate control, we are sent to a distant city, removed from the locale where we unfortunately caused this loss of life. And so we're left to grow up and live a life, we might say, but since we are away from our own native home and family, it's not a cakewalk. You could call it in some way nearly life imprisonment or banishment. We're left alive. So what do these ingredients all have in common? If somebody causes negligent homicide, he can live out his life, but not in comfort, somewhere else. Don't move the boundary marker. Make sure you have a consistent system of justice and establishing terms of justice and peace for a city that's beleaguered. And if I wrap all that up into one, I would say that the core element is not taking advantage of someone who is unfortunately in a weakened position, not taking advantage of someone who is unfortunately in a weakened or vulnerable circumstance. We don't take advantage of people who are in an inferior position. And now, refresh your mind. And do you know what the most often repeated mitzvah is in the entire Torah? It's mentioned 36 times. Care for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. And think about that. What does a widow have in common with an orphan? Nobody to help. And a stranger? Nobody to help. And you may remember the phrase, do not place a stumbling block in front of the blind, neither shall you curse or insult somebody who is deaf. Why? Because you're taking advantage of somebody's vulnerabilities, something that is unfair. And if you wrap all of these elements up together, don't curse a blind, don't insult the deaf. Remember the beleaguered city. establishing a system of justice, not moving a boundary marker against a neighbor, making sure that there is as much as we possibly can to assure justice for somebody who unintentionally caused death. You have a system that permeates the entire Torah. The system is to not take advantage of somebody who is in an inferior position. I think the sum total of all of Jewish legal expression, and to a certain extent theology, is recognize that there are people who are lower than you, and make sure you, Jews, do not contribute to their downfall. Not saying that we have to be lovey-dovey with every single one on the planet. That's unrealistic. But you and I can be, in a very realistic manner, recognizing and acting in a way that accepts people where they are when they're vulnerable and not take advantage of them. It's the other side of the message that Steve and David just shared a little while ago when they asked to summarize everything. That which is hateful to you, don't do to others. Let us contribute to our society by refraining from taking advantage of somebody who may or may not know that you and I are able to take advantage of him. In fact, we'll be making the world a much better place. Now I rise for the Aleinu in the Siddur. If you have the Siddur, it's on page number 56, page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gdula leotzer breshit, shelo asan k'goyeh haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam kalpenu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, v'mishtachavim u'modim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlochim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim v'yosei haaretz u'moshad yikaro b'shamayim v'mimal v'shchinat l'zo v'gover v'robi hu Eloheinu Elod emek malkeinu v'bezumato Kakatu b'torato yadata yom v'shevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachat elud. Kakadu b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, v'ne'emar, Haya Adonai, le'melech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Yihyeh Adonai echad, U'Shema echad. And now those who are reciting Morris Kaddish are invited to rise. And we remember with great love members of our community and beyond: John Shepard, Ida Schneiderman, Donald Goldrich, Abe Levine, Billy Kahn, Eddie Grodsky, Willie Berman, Lena W. Fisher, Mary Kellner Bronstein, Irene Berger, Beth Lubell Neal, Dr. Murray Muchnick, Louise Goldrich, Nancy Howell, Charles Gibson, And if you know someone, perhaps you might mention the name of someone in your own home. Yitkadal Kadash Shemei Rabba. Amen. Be'olma Dibra Pirute. V'yamlich Malchute. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye v'chol Be'Israel. Ba'agala u'vizaman karib. V'meru. Amen. Yahei Shmei Rabba Nevarach La'olam O Omei O Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithagar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Kudusha U'refu La'ela Min Kol Yerchata V'shivata Tushbechata V'nechemata Ta'amiran Ba'alma V'meru. Amen. Yehei Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'meru. Amen. Oseh Shalom V'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'meru. Amen. I'm sure that more and more of us are learning of acquaintances, perhaps family and friends who are ill with COVID, or perhaps recently have been tested COVID positive and symptomatic. There's great deal of fear, obviously. So we offer prayer. Yihirutzomu fenachanu aleinu v'notenu shekulam nishmeru v'nefzeku v'nitra'u v'nomar amen. Almighty God, source of all life, bring your healing. Reestablish those who are afflicted and near afflicted with renewed health and strength, wellness and vitality. Safeguard them all and watch over them, shielding them from further affliction and further suffering. May all of our loved ones and those who are not known to us, strangers near and far, be renewed in health and peace. We all say. We are nearly concluded. In just a few moments, Yehuda is going to offer the Kiddush, and if you have a glass of wine and perhaps a piece of bread, we'll do Kiddush and Amotzi in just a minute together. But prior to that, because we are now in the month known as Elul, leading up to Rosh Hashanah, there's a small passage from Psalm 27 which calls out to me. One thing I ask of God, this is what I seek, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, to behold God's peacefulness and to pray in God's sanctuary. Achat shalti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat shalti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yamei chayai. Lachazot b'noam Adonai. Olavaker behechalo, lachazot b'noam Adonai, olavaker behechalo. And we'll be making Kiddush in just a moment, but now Yehuda is going to conclude the, you might say, formal part of the service before Kiddush and Amotzi with a special song. Yehuda, would you explain what you're doing?
Well, I don't know that I can give you much explanation other than this is just an old Bob Dylan song that is considered to be of a spiritual nature. The lyrics touch on many of the good aspects of humanity, and it touches on a relationship with between man and God. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung. May you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of change shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. May you stay forever young. May you stay forever young.
Amen. Shkoyach Yehuda. And now Kiddush again if you have a glass of wine. Perhaps a piece of bread for the Hamotzi in just a minute after Yehuda leads us in the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzevanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'yavahu v'ratzon hinilanu, zikaron lemahaseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehila la mikra kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu vaharta, v'tanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, b'yavahu v'ratzon, hin haltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shkoyach Yehuda. Thank you, one and all, for joining in. Thanks for bringing your Ruach, your spirit in. And remind us, of course, tomorrow morning, YouTube, 10 to 11-ish or so. And tomorrow evening, of course, Havdalah on Zoom. And Monday, Tanakh. Tuesday, Spirit. Tuesday, Adult Hebrew. For now, from our hearts to you, may we know that you are precious and you are cherished. May God bless you all. Shalom, Litrod, until we see each other again. Good Shabbos.